Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are embarking on a journey into something, well, truly fundamental to your health and well-being. We're talking about the incredible power of your beliefs, how they can actually shape your very biology.
Exactly. We'll be exploring how perceptions, your thoughts aren't just abstract things floating around. They're tangible forces. They can influence your cells and, yeah, ultimately play a huge role in your health.
And the core idea here, the heart of this exploration, is this concept called the biology of belief.
hmm It's a perspective suggesting that actually your beliefs might be even more important than your genes in directing your biology.
Which really challenges that old idea, doesn't it? Genetic determinism.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And it opens up some, frankly, remarkable possibilities for understanding and maybe even influencing our own health.
And this isn't just like abstract theory floating around, is it? It comes from a very personal place for the author of this work.
Oh, definitely. You have someone, a successful cell biologist, a medical school professor, seem to have it all career-wise.
But personally,
Yeah.
something wasn't clicking.
Right. A deep sense of dissatisfaction despite the success. Feeling kind of resigned to being unhappy even.
Until
Yeah.
something shifted.
A huge shift. Autumn, 1985. He was teaching offshore in the Caribbean, a bit removed from the, let's say, the dogma of mainstream academia.
A change of scenery, a change of perspective.
Precisely. And there, he experienced what he calls a profound scientific epiphany. That distance allowed for a real breakthrough in thinking.
Okay, so let's unpack that. A respected scientist, steeped in traditional biology,
Uh-huh.
suddenly realizing that a core belief that genes dictate everything might just be wrong.
Not just wrong, but fundamentally flawed. And this wasn't just a gut feeling. It came from years of his own research. Government-funded work on cloning stem cells.
So his own data was pointing away from genetic determinism.
Years of it. He felt the evidence was undeniable, even back then. Evidence suggesting the environment, our perception of the environment, was key.
Wow, imagine teaching the central dogma DNA to RNA to protein, that one-way street.
Yeah, teaching it to medical students for years.
And then your own work says, hang on, maybe the environment, maybe even our internal environment is actually in the driver's seat.
It was completely transformative, a massive shift.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then. To follow that journey, we want to figure out exactly how thought can impact the physical body
And look at an incredible healing case that seems to defy the odds.
and touch on why maybe. Maybe this isn't front page news in medicine.
Right. And importantly, share some practical techniques, things listeners can actually start using.
Okay, let's start with that shocking revelation itself, the link between thoughts and DNA.
So for a long time, the standard view was pretty clear. DNA is the blueprint. Fixed. Unchanging, mostly.
And the nucleus where the DNA lives, that's the cell's brain, right? The control center.
That was the model. But the picture emerging now, especially with epigenetics, is, well, it's vastly different.
Epigenetics, that's the field showing how the environment affects gene expression, not the genes themselves.
Exactly. And crucially, environment includes your internal world, thoughts, beliefs, emotions. They actively shape how your genes behave.
So it's not just the DNA sequence, but how it's read.
Precisely. And here's a twist. The cell membrane, that outer layer, it's not just a bag holding the cell together.
Okay.
It's actually the true brain of the cell.
The membrane. How so?
It's the interface. It's constantly reading signals from the environment outside the cell. It has these receptor proteins, like little antennae,
Sensing the world around it.
constantly sensing, constantly translating those environmental feelings into signals inside the cell. It's incredibly dynamic.
The magical membrane, as he puts it. So it's actively perceiving.
Actively perceiving. And here's the kicker for you, the listener. Those environmental signals, heavily influenced by your perceptions, your beliefs, they control the regulatory proteins that interact directly with your DNA.
Wait, so my beliefs influence signals that tell proteins what to do with my DNA.
You got it. Think of these proteins like a sleeve that can cover up a part of the DNA strand.
Okay, like hiding a word on a page.
Exactly. If the gene is covered by that sleeve, its instructions can't be read. It can't make its protein.
And my beliefs affect whether the sleeve is on or off.
That's the mechanism. Your beliefs, via these signals, effectively help choose which genes get expressed and which stay silent.
That is profound. And you mentioned only a tiny fraction of DNA actually codes for proteins.
Less than 2%. For years, the rest was called junk DNA.
Right, I remember that term.
But now we know over 80% of that junk, sometimes called dark matter now, is actually doing the regulation. It's responding to environmental signals through these epigenetic mechanisms.
And it's not junk at all. It's the control panel.
Pretty much. It's what allows our relatively small number of genes, maybe 19,000 or so, to produce this incredible variety, maybe over 100,000 different proteins. It's the environmental signals orchestrating this complexity.
So, bringing it back to us, my thoughts, my beliefs, they aren't just abstract.
Not at all. They are real signals, part of your internal environment, constantly telling your cells which genes to activate. It's an ongoing conversation between mind and biology.
Okay, this sets the stage perfectly for that jaw-dropping case you mentioned, the sarcoma patient.
Yes, Dr. Albert Mason's patient. A truly remarkable story. This person had widespread sarcoma, which back then was considered completely incurable, no hope.
An incurable condition.
According to medicine at the time, yes. But through a kind of, well, a misdiagnosis situation, the patient came to believe they were receiving an effective treatment for something else entirely.
So they believed they were getting better, even though the diagnosis was grim?
They had unwavering belief in the treatment they thought they were getting. And despite having this deadly sarcoma, they experienced a complete verified remission.
Just based on belief.
The implication is incredibly strong. It really makes you question the limits we place on the body's own healing power.
It forces us to look again at the placebo effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We often dismiss it like, oh, it's just in your head. But the evidence says it's a real biological response.
Like that Baylor study on knee surgery?
Exactly. That one's fascinating. People with severe knee pain got sham surgery incisions made, but nothing actually done inside. They improved just as much as the patients who got the real full surgery.
Wow. So the belief they were fixed triggered actual healing.
It seems so. And that quote from Tim Perez, one of the placebo participants, "Your mind can work miracles," it really hits home.
But there's a flip side too, right? The nocebo effect.
Yes, sadly. The case of Sam Lond illustrates this. Diagnosed with esophageal cancer, told it was terminal.
And he passed away.
He did, but the autopsy showed very little cancer, actually, not nearly enough to have been the cause of death.
So the belief, the fear, the expectation of dying.
It strongly suggested that the belief he was dying, reinforced by everyone around him, played a major role. Negative beliefs can be biologically potent, too.
It's powerful stuff, both ways. Healing and harm, potentially influenced by our minds.
It truly highlights this deep, intricate connection, perception and physiology hand in hand.
Which brings up a big question. If the mind is this powerful, why isn't this, standard practice in every doctor's office?
That's the elephant in the room, isn't it? The author offers some perspectives on why the medical industry might, well, let's say underemphasize this.
And one angle is money.
It's hard to ignore the financial incentives. The pharmaceutical industry is built on developing chemical compounds, pills, things you can patent, standardize, sell.
Makes sense from a business perspective.
Right. But belief, consciousness, how do you package and sell that? It's less tangible, less profitable within the current model.
So the focus stays on the magic bullets, the pills.
Largely, yes. And there's also historical resistance in science to, well, non-physical influences, energy fields, consciousness itself.
Like the work of Burr or Rife, pioneers who faced pushback.
Exactly. Their ideas about life being connected to invisible energy fields didn't fit the dominant materialistic Newtonian view of the body as just a machine.
A machine made of parts, treatable with physical interventions or chemicals.
Pretty much. And quantum physics, which shows a much more interconnected, energy-based reality. It just hasn't fully filtered down into the foundations of everyday medicine.
So doctors aren't necessarily hiding anything, but they're working within a system.
A system shaped by this older worldview and heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical industry. The author calls them pharmaceutical paxies, maybe a harsh term, but suggesting they're caught in a framework.
Okay, so given all this, the power of the mind, the current system, what can people actually do? You mentioned techniques.
Yes, 3 straightforward yet potentially powerful techniques to start reprogramming, if you will, your cells for better health.
Technique number 1.
Conscious awareness and belief examination. This is foundational.
Becoming aware of our beliefs.
Especially the limiting ones. The idea is many of these were downloaded subconsciously before we were, say, 6 years old, from parents, culture.
Like programming.
Exactly. And our life often acts like a printout of those subconscious programs. So the first step is just observe. What thoughts run automatically? What assumptions do you make?
Identifying the ones that don't serve you. Like seeing the colored filters you look through.
That's a great analogy. Seeing the filters allows you to question if they reflect reality or just your programming.
Okay, awareness first. What's technique 2?
Utilizing the power of the conscious mind. This is where free will comes in.
How so?
Your conscious mind can observe those subconscious programs running. It can reflect. It can say, hey, that behavior, that belief, that's not actually helpful.
And then choose differently.
And consciously decide to change. You can actively choose empowering beliefs, thoughts focused on health, well-being, positive outcomes. You direct the signals.
So override the old programming with conscious intention.
That's the essence of it. It takes practice, but it's possible.
And the third technique?
Mind-body practices. Things like meditation, yoga, deep breathing, even prayer.
These aren't just relaxation tools.
They are, but they do more. Research shows these practices can cause immediate, measurable changes in gene expression.
Really? Changes in genes involved in?
What? Things like immune function, energy metabolism, insulin secretion. Vital stuff. There was that study by Basson and colleagues in 2013 showing these rapid effects from the relaxation response.
So even simple relaxation techniques done regularly can nudge our biology.
Potently so. It's about influencing your internal environment in a positive way.
Let's circle back to some more of that science, really anchor this. Epigenetics, we covered environment talking to genes.
Right. And then there's the research on telomeres, those protective caps on our chromosomes.
Yeah, linked to aging and health.
Well, studies show that things like a positive outlook, happiness, gratitude, service, love, they can enhance telomerase. That's the enzyme that rebuilds telomeres.
So our mindset could literally affect our cellular aging.
The evidence points that way. Think about that Canadian study with breast cancer patients.
As ones doing mindfulness and support groups.
Yes. Their telomeres didn't shorten like the control groups did. Their mental and emotional state seemed to protect them at a cellular level.
Incredible. And Candace Pert's work, Molecules of Emotion.
Crucial work. It showed the mind isn't just in the head. Receptor sites for these informational molecules, these molecules of emotion, are all over the body.
So emotions aren't just felt, they have widespread physical effects.
Absolutely. The mind uses the brain to generate these molecules, influencing the entire system. It's a body-wide network.
And stress hormones like cortisol, we know they're bad, but how do they fit?
They directly impact gene function, too. Studies on mice showed exposure to stress hormones caused lasting changes in genes related to mood.
So stress chemically alters gene expression.
It can, but conversely, positive inputs matter, too. Love, social support. fMRI studies show these can calm the brain's threat responses. Dr. Daniel Siebel's work highlights how vital supportive relationships are for our well-being, right down to the brain level.
Okay, so putting all this evidence together, epigenetics, telomeres, molecules of emotion, stress hormones, positive inputs.
The picture becomes really clear, doesn't it? Our perceptions, our beliefs, they aren't just bystanders. They have direct, measurable biological effects. Cellular, genetic, the works.
We're not just passive victims of our genes.
Not even close. We're active participants, constantly shaping our own biology.
So let's wrap this deep dive up. Key takeaways for everyone listening.
First, I'd say realize the sheer power of your beliefs. They can genuinely influence your cells, your gene expression, your health. You're not stuck with just the hand you were dealt genetically.
Exactly.
That mind-body connection, it's real, it's profound, and it's a pathway for healing, for well-being. Cultivating your inner world matters physically.
Okay. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah, a provocative one. If beliefs can impact our biology this dramatically, what else is possible? What other limitations that we think are fixed might actually be changeable just by shifting our perceptions? What happens when we fully embrace a biology shaped by belief?
It invites a whole new level of exploration, doesn't it? Into the real power of our own minds.